In previous episodes of this series, we have been reviewing the evidence of giants in America. In this episode, I want to address a common misconception that causes many to doubt our claims. What I'm referring to is gigantism. According to Wikipedia, gigantism, also known as giantism, is a condition characterized by excessive growth in height significantly above average. In humans, this condition is caused by overproduction of growth hormone in childhood, resulting in persons between 7 feet and 9 feet in height. Many of those who have been identified with gigantism have suffered from multiple health issues involving their circulatory or skeletal system. For many Americans, the term gigantism brings to mind certain famously large individuals who have become permanent fixtures in American pop culture. The most renowned of these is undoubtedly Andrei Rene Roussimoff, otherwise known as Andre the Giant. Andre is of course best remembered as the legendary WWF wrestler who towered above his competitors in the ring. Those who are not wrestling fans might remember him as Physique, the gentle giant in the film The Princess Bride. Though perhaps the most famous, Andre was certainly not the tallest man in American history who suffered from gigantism. Born the 22nd of February in the year 1918, Robert Wadlow, also known as the Alton Giant and the Giant of Illinois, grew to reach the incredible stature of 8 feet 11 inches high by the time he died at the tragic age of 22. Both Robert Wadlow and Andrei Roussimoff were plagued during the course of their lives by various debilitating complications associated with their rare condition. Gigantism is not a genetic enhancement, but a genetic delinquency. It does not augment the abilities of those who are afflicted with it, but sadly is an encumbering disability, which in most cases leads to an untimely death. Now, because many of the bones of giants that have been discovered within the United States belong to human-like entities that stood between 7 and 9 feet tall, there persists an uneducated assumption that these were also occasions of gigantism. However, this assumption is both illogical and, as I will demonstrate, totally impossible in certain cases. I have been referring to the red-haired and other races of giants as being human-like rather than strictly human, for very good reason. As noted in previous episodes, apart from their abnormal size, these creatures display very specific phenotypic markers that distinguish them from human beings, such as coarse red and blonde hair, not typical of the indigenous dwellers of America, 2 rows of teeth, 6 digits on their hands and feet, unusual facial bone structures, elongated skulls, and even horns. Besides all of this, numerous giant skeletons are often found buried together, such as the 18 bizarre skeletons discovered in burial mounds near Lake Delavan, Wisconsin in May 1912, all of which were between 7 and 9 feet tall. Since gigantism is exceedingly rare, it is illogical to assume that a single tribe would have so many exceptionally large human specimens living contemporaneously. In fact, what logic dictates in such a scenario is that these skeletal remains do not represent a genetic human anomaly, but a non-human genetic race acutely distinct from Homo sapiens. Since so many of the giants' remains discovered not only in America but all around the globe feature many of the same phenotypic markers, we can infer that they are all related genetically and perhaps all originate from the same primal tribe. The lands of North America alone seem to have hosted more than a few genetic variations of giants. The Native Americans, in fact, tell tales of war between the different tribes of giants, some of which were smaller or more passive than others, and yet all of which were very fierce. And this touches on another point. These were not tribes of feeble, sickly, or disabled beings, such as the overly large humans suffering from gigantism, but exceedingly strong, fast, and ferocious, bloodthirsty monsters who were able to wear and wield heavy copper armaments and erect massive megalithic structures. Whereas some of the tribes were only marginally gigantic, though bizarre in other ways, physical evidence has turned up in America's past of beings whose stature was of epic proportions. On Friday, July 11th of 1919, an incredible headline appeared in the pages of a newspaper in Austin, Texas, declaring that a giant skeleton 18 feet tall had been discovered. The article relates the following. The skeleton is in possession of W.J. McKinney, Houston, Texas oil prospector who found it, and has been seen by a number of people who vouch for the truth of the size of the relic of a heretofore unknown race. Mr. McKinney, while making an excavation on the narrow watershed between the Brazos and Wichita rivers, came upon the fossilized skeleton near the surface. Dr. J. E. Pierce, professor of anthropology of the University of Texas, remarked on the discovery. If the report that the fossilized skeleton of a giant 18 feet tall has been found near Seymour, Texas, is true, it is the most important ethnological discovery ever made in the world. If you're wondering why you have never heard of the most important ethnological discovery ever made in the world, it is probably due to the fact that, according to the article, the bones of the 18-foot giant were most likely donated to the Smithsonian Institution. The discovery of this exceptionally large giant was well known at the time and corroborated in the Sunday, July 27, 1919 edition of the Moberly Democrat newspaper in Moberly, Missouri. There is also the fascinating case of the Hubbard discovery. In an article in the Los Angeles Times, October 2nd of 1896, Samuel Hubbard Jr., scientist and explorer, wrote the following. Does anybody believe that there has been a race of gigantic men who were 12 to 20 feet high who ever lived in these United States of America? And yet the proof that such a race of people did live in this country is to be found in the Grand Canyon of the Colorado River in northern Arizona. This proof consists of, first, footprints in the red sandstone, footprints that appear to have been made by the moccasin feet of gigantic men, men whose tracks measured 20 inches in length and who stepped 5 feet at a stride. The second proof is that there is the petrified body of such a man likewise in the red sandstone of the Grand Canyon district. This body was that of a living, breathing man, but after death the flesh was replaced by lime or silica held in solution in the water. There is ample evidence that nature was able to perform this feat, as the petrifying process is being carried on in the canyon to this day. The third fact is that there is and was a strong and almost universal tradition among the ancient people of Mexico and Peru that such a race of giants lived in their country. Aside from making the claim that up to 20-foot tall giants once roamed in the Grand Canyon, Hubbard also offers proof that they lived during the time of the dinosaurs. Upon publication of his article, Mr. Hubbard, who had once been the curator of the vertebrate paleontology at both the Carnegie Museum and the National Museum of Natural History, was promptly ostracized by the scientific community of the day for his audacity. There is much collaborating evidence around the world that supports Samuel Hubbard's amazing discovery in the Grand Canyon. Enormous footprints and bones of giant beings who stood over 20 feet tall can still be found on every continent. Since numerical figures are often nothing more than meaningless statistics to the human mind, let me end this analysis by illustrating the size ratio of a 20-foot giant in comparison to a human of normal stature. Imagine 1980s wrestling superstar Hulk Hogan holding aloft his wrestling buddy doll. Whether it be the bones of 9-foot-tall entities with double rows of teeth and 6 fingers, or the footprints of towering 20-foot titans, the evidence is clear. There were giants in the land, and they were not fully human. Genetics, not gigantism. Reporting for SteveQuail.com, I'm Timothy Alberino, and that's my analysis.